Peace. What's good, YouTube? It's Kareem Samadi back again with another video. Okay, so today we're going to get into apathy and depression and how to move on and let go of apathy and depression. So when we talk about apathy, the first thing that we have to understand in terms of how it relates to us is what exactly are we bitter about? What exactly are we caught up about? And what has brought us to this state of consciousness in which we feel like everything is hopeless. We feel like there's no virtue in anything that we do, or we may feel a sense of a lack of direction in life or a sense of despair, whatever the case may be, and it all ties into depression as well, especially, for people who have experienced depression, you know what I'm talking about, in a sense where it truly feels like nothing matters. And it truly feels like nothing can get better. And there's a lot of I can't inside of this as well. A lot of I can't statements. I can't do anything about this. There's nothing I can do, etc., etc. That's a state of apathy intertwined with depression. And so when we observe ourselves in these states, we have to really take a look at what exactly does this do for us, and why do we find ourselves in these states in the first place, right? Well, the first thing that I want to say is that there's a lot of positive reinforcement in this world currently around being a victim, around feeling powerless, around just in general. I would say being a victim encompasses it all entirely, but there's many different ways to explain that. But when it comes to being a victim, there's a lot of payoff in being a victim, or determining where the blame goes in your life. There's a lot of payoff in feeling like you're powerless, in a sense. There's a lot of payoff to that, at least for the ego, right? When it comes to blame, and when we're shifting the blame and responsibility away from ourselves and making ourselves feel more apathetic, making ourselves feel more depressed, or reinforcing why we feel apathetic, reinforcing why we feel depressed, right? When we shift that focus away from ourselves, it becomes easier to just blame the world. It becomes easier to just blame what happened in the past and say that it's too much for us to handle, it's out of our power, or to give our power all up to something else outside of us in order to bring that cure or to get that quick fix, right? This can turn to drugs, it can turn into communities, bad communities, good communities, possibly, or it can turn into full-blown, cult-like activities, religion, giving away all of your responsibility, all of your power away to something else so that you don't have to face what's inside, right? Apathy and depression will bring you there. I guarantee you that it will bring you to things outside of yourself so that you don't have to focus on what's within. And when things go wrong with what's outside of you, you can just blame it again, right? You can just blame it because, hey, that's something I joined. I don't have to take responsibility for being a part of it, right? So how we bring ourselves to these states, essentially is we don't really see virtue in taking responsibility. We live in a society that constantly reinforces, hey, if you're a victim, that means you're right. And being right, brings a lot of power, or it makes you feel like you feel powerful, right? Being morally right, being ethically right, or not even just that, but just being egoically right, I would say, makes you feel better about yourself, rather than doing what's right for you, rather than understanding what's right for your well-being, rather than understanding the confines of your situation, rather than taking responsibility for yourself. Even court systems are designed around blame rather than around what actually happened. We have to understand that everything is designed around shifting things outside of yourself in order to figure out a situation. And when it comes to our apathy, when it comes to our depression, right, those two states that we fall into in ourselves, we choose to identify heavily with those. And we, in terms of what got us there, we also bring ourselves down even further in those states, right? Now, for people who aren't experienced with getting themselves out of apathy, getting themselves out of depression, they may feel like in these states that they need to take pills. Like I said, going outside of yourself. They may feel like they need to take pills. They may feel like they need to, light some trees. They may feel like they need to constantly drink themselves to death, constantly, be around people, workaholics, whatever the case may be, or even the exact opposite. Because when you get into apathy, a lot of times you just don't want to do anything. And that's where the I can't statements come in. That's when it comes into I can't get a job. That's where it comes to I can't get a girlfriend. I can't get a boyfriend. I can't be understood by anyone. No one understands me. There's no point, right? That's where all those statements start to pop up, and it creates depression over time, right? And when we become depressed, it's because it's a buildup of I can'ts that we've been telling ourselves. Like I said in the video about the story that we tell ourselves, that's what we become over time. So that's something you have to keep in mind. What exactly are you telling yourself every day? And also, what exactly are you doing about your situation every day? If you are constantly filled with thoughts or filled with statements of I can't do this, I can't get that, I can't get out of the situation. If it's just a bunch of I can'ts, you have to recognize that all of your I can'ts truly mean that you don't want to, or you can't even imagine the possibility of being out of that situation. You can't even imagine the possibility of that not being the case for you. And a lot of that comes from negative reinforcement that you placed upon yourself. And not only that, but when you negatively reinforce yourself and you blame things outside of you for negatively reinforcing yourself, it starts to make you feel better. At least you get that quick fix, from being a victim, right? Because you feel like, hey, it's not about what I've been telling myself. It's about what happened to me. It's not about it's not about me taking responsibility. Other people need to come and fix my problems, right? And this line of thinking is played on so heavily by a lot of different things. A lot of different companies play on this mindset. A lot of different politics will play on this mindset that many people possess, and that's why many companies or many politicians in general, businesses, whatever the hell, people like to say is corrupt these days, right? These things will play on your insecurities. They will play on these thought processes because you're vulnerable. You have no power in this area, and so you become a target. You become a target because all they have to do is sell you back that quick fix to reinforce that victimhood, and you'll buy right into it. You'll take those meds. You'll consume that content. You'll cast those votes, whatever the case may be. And they will promise you that better future, all in return for you feeling like a victim. And that's essentially what I'm talking about when it comes to this. So when it comes to you taking responsibility, you have to be responsible enough to actually be able to see, what exactly you're telling yourself on a daily basis. Because if you're not, then you're going to constantly keep spiraling, and you'll never really be able to see unless you actually take the time to self-reflect, right? Now, spiritually, what this all means is that when you fall so deep into this state, you lost a lot of your power, or not really lost, but you can't tap into it because it's not being utilized by you, and you're not necessarily giving yourself the chance to bring that power online. So, and that's because you've locked away that part of your mind that is able to activate, different parts of yourself, that's able to bring you into a state that's like, okay, we can do this. Okay, I can do this. I will do this. I have to do this. This will happen for me. And also what you buy into as well, essentially plays a huge role. I like to talk about, in many videos, I like to talk about exactly how if you don't control your mind, somebody else will control it for you. And that's very true, because what exactly you buy into on a daily basis is going to create your reality for you. And that's guaranteed. If you stay in a state of apathy and you begin to join communities that reinforce that state of apathy, join communities that reinforce depression, right? Reinforce bitterness against people who, whatever the case may be, right? Anything that reinforces things that make you feel like a victim, right? That's what you will become because you're vibrating on it. And so, and this is why I say, like, once you identify heavily with the mindset of being a victim, you already are a target. You know, you're not in your right mind. So all you have to do is just flip the script. Instead of being a victim, you have to say, okay, what can I do right now? What's out of my control, right? And whatever is out of your control, you need to learn how to surrender that, and you need to focus on what you can control. And what you can control is your mind. What you can control is what you do from there on forward. You can't control the past. See, a lot of times why we fall into apathy, why we fall into depression, is because not only are we blaming a lot, not only are we victimizing ourselves a lot, but we are lamenting over the past. And also, in a lot of ways, we are lamenting over the present because we see ourselves as helpless in a sense. So, you know, and that takes you away from the moment. That takes you away from consciousness. So, but when you flip the script and you start to see, or you start to actually create a possibility for yourself, you start to actually see something for yourself going forward. You start to actually say, well, what can I do right now? That changes everything. You know, what steps can I take right now to change everything? You know, instead of saying I can't, start saying I can. I had a track coach, and he would always, whenever we would whenever anybody would say I can't during track practice in high school, we would always get punished. And the reason why, or he would tell us not to say that, is simply because of the fact that the more you keep saying it, the more it's going to show, right? And that, it really meant a lot to me back then, because after that I had to stop saying that I can't, you know, because once I did, you know, it really unlocked new potential for me. And that also translated to many different parts of my life too. You know, when I went to the Marine Corps, that changed a lot, because, you know, if I had been saying I can't do this, or if I had that quitter's mindset, you know, throughout the entire time, I would never have been able to make it through the 4 years that I served, right? And that's very huge. And in general, when it comes to life, see, you know, when you say I can't, you are blocking out any opportunities. So when you want to see a way forward for yourself, you know, a way forward for you feeling better, you have to allow yourself to feel better. Just as there's always the potential to find something to complain about, there's always a potential to find something to feel bad about. Always an intent. There's always the opportunity to find something negative. You can also find something positive at the same time. You can also bring those positive emotions online at the same time. And actually, they're always there. That feeling of abundance is always there. That feeling of joy is always there. That feeling of opportunity is always there, right? But even when you're at your lowest, it's always there. When you feel depressed, when you feel angry, when you feel apathetic, it's always there. Those positive emotions are always there. The same way how it's very easy to bring yourself into a negative mindset, it's very easy to bring yourself into a positive mindset. The only difference is when you're in a negative mindset, you are in heavy resistance to your positivity. And so the more that you work on resisting your positivity less, right? And I'm not saying escape into you know, what people will call toxic positivity, what people will call being an optimist, right? I'm not saying escape into that. No, it's okay to understand these emotions, but in understanding your negative emotions, you have to choose to feel that way. Rather than saying that these things happen to me, these things are making me feel that way, you make the conscious decision to feel that way. You make the conscious decision to love or hate. You make the conscious decision to say I can't, or what would translate to I won't do this. You know, saying I won't it puts you in a better position of power for yourself, rather than saying that you can't. You always can. There's always a choice, right? So we need to be aware of that too. There's always a choice, even if it sucks. There's always a choice. So you always can do something. As long as you can imagine the possibility, it's always on the table for you, right? But shifting that mindset, you know, decreasing resistance to your ability to move forward, decreasing your resistance to yourself, decreasing your resistance to your emotions, right? That's what's gonna allow. That's what's gonna really make the shift, rather than dwelling too hard, and saying staying in apathy, staying in depression is heavy resistance to joy, and it's heavy resistance to purpose, right? And so you'll never really be able to find your purpose or to really continue your purpose, I would say, and you'll never really be able to experience the higher emotions. You'll never really be able to experience the joy, the love, the abundance if you are depressed and heavy resistance to your positive feelings. You have to be willing to let go. And so our ability to let go is what's going to determine how much stronger we get mentally and emotionally going forward. Because that mentally and emotionally, that's what really creates our spiritual power. So when we stop resisting ourselves, when we stop resisting, just seeing that we can actually move forward, right? Then that's really what's going to determine how much we can really evolve spiritually. That's what's going to determine the amount of paths, the amount of abundance that we have for ourselves, just in general, everything. How much power that we have, it's going to determine all of that. So you have to be willing to see it. You have to be willing to experience it, right? You have to allow yourself, because nothing can take that away from you. Nothing can take that sense of I choose how to feel. Nothing can take that emotional state that you can generate for yourself. Nothing can take that away from you but you, right? At one point, you decided to close yourself off from it. When I was doing hypnotherapy with Khadija Samdi, right? She, one of the questions that I had asked, it had to deal with a lot of trauma that I had with women, throughout my life, and I eventually came to the conclusion, and she suggested it too, that I had problems trusting women, and in reality, I'm not gonna lie, I did, not just that, but in general, just trusting people, over time. But my question was generally directed towards women, but I didn't know I couldn't trust men for a while too. My ability to trust other people was hardened because I was so used to people walking out in my life, or disappearing. I was so used to seeing that symbol in my life. Like I said, growing up, dad wasn't there for at least the first 16 to 17 years, other than through the phone, and through at what year, and also through that time growing up, my mom was working a lot, and then when I hit like year 14, when I was 14 or something, like 14, 15, she also had disappeared. But she came back later. I mean, not necessarily disappeared, but she wasn't raising me anymore for a little bit, and then she eventually came back. So like that's a lot. Just in general, those are just two people. I'm not talking about other people in my life who also walked out, whether they were former lovers or friends or whatever the case may be. But I'm just using an example of parents, and we all know not having both parents in the picture, especially at the same time, right? We all know what that can do to children, and what it can do to adults, right? So that for me, that ability to trust for me, it became hardened, and the only reason why I was able to move past it was me allowing myself to say, okay, I can trust people again. I can trust people to be there for me again. Because now, when I looked at it in the future, I was like, well, I have both my parents with me right now. Even though those things happened before, I understand where they were at in their lives before, right now. So I had to forgive them exactly. I had to forgive them instead of, blaming them, or instead of, not seeing the entire picture, not seeing them as human beings, not seeing them as human beings with their own faults, the same way that I'm a human being, or at least in the human experience, right, with limited faults. When you understand people from that perspective, it takes that resistance away from the positive feelings that you have the capability of experiencing for them, right? It takes that resistance away, right? That's essentially what letting go really does for you, on a higher level. And so, and also by me coming to that conclusion, I was able to start trusting women again too. And it actually made my ability to make friends a lot better too, with men as well. And me in general, when it came to my interactions with women, it also fixed that as well. It was just a little bit different because what I had experienced with women throughout my life was different, versus what I had experienced with men. So, but when I stopped resisting so much, and when I actually dealt with the skeletons in the closet, that's what really actually opened me up, on a higher level to going back to feeling better, feeling normal, to my real normal, not to the shadow that I've created to run away, or the shadow that I've created to protect myself, but actually bringing myself into a higher state of consciousness and bringing myself into a place of openness with the people that I meet, openness with the people that I make friends with, or the people that I even interact with, right? Instead of, going to situations closed all the time, or avoiding them altogether, or, being so defensive or being passive aggressive. There's a lot of different things that I went through myself. So, and even now, I'm still working on it, but how I am now versus how I was during the hypnotherapy versus how I was a year ago, huge difference, huge leaps in consciousness. And I just know, even a month from now, I'm going to be on an entirely different level, honestly. Probably tomorrow, I'm going to be on an entirely different level. I'm always changing, I'm always evolving. And that's because I allow myself to, and you can do it too, right? As long as you allow yourself to. And even then, just remember that the choice is always in your hands. You choose to feel that depression every single day. You choose to sip that Kool-Aid every single day. Now, if you want to sit with the winners, right, then you have to choose to have the mindset of a winner. You have to choose to have the mindset of a joyful person. So whatever is constantly reinforcing whatever is going to keep you in that state, right? Whether it's the communities that you're in, whether it's the people that you're around, whether it's the news that you watch, whether it's the shows that you watch, right? Trust me, I guarantee it's there somewhere. Even if it's in the YouTube videos that you watch, everything that you take in on a daily basis, it's there somewhere. So what you're surrounding yourself with, it reflects what's inside. It reflects those thoughts, it reflects those emotions. So and also when you get those negative thoughts, when you get those apathetic thoughts, those oppressing thoughts, those bitter thoughts, when they come to you, right, we have to recognize that those things are legitimate entities, right? Brother Panic was saying this in a live lecture he posted I think it was like a few days ago. I don't know if it's on YouTube anymore, but I caught it, and he was saying that things like depression, right? So many people believe in these things that it's become a legitimate entity in the astral world that latches onto you. Things like anger becomes legitimate entities that latch onto you, and your thought forms, they create a tether between these things to keep you stuck in those mindsets, right? Whatever happened to you in your life, right? I guarantee you, every single day there's always, like I said, it's a constant dialogue between you and your mind. So those thoughts are going to keep constantly coming to you and telling you, buy into me, buy into me, buy into me. Those negative feelings are going to tell you, buy into me, buy into me, buy into me, feed me those things that keep me sustained. You constantly agreeing with me, I'm gonna make you remember something that you don't like to remember. I'm gonna bring back that trauma. I'm gonna bring back that time you got rejected. I'm gonna bring back that time you lost your job. I'm gonna bring back that time somebody talked shit to you. Whatever the case may be. I'm gonna bring back that time, you have problems with your family. It's so many different things. It's gonna keep bringing it back to you, and the way that it gets you to feed into it is you allowing it to take control over your life. Somebody says that one thing that triggers you, you go off, right? Or you clam up, whatever the case may be, or you don't defend yourself, whatever the case may be. And you may not even realize you're doing it because it's so embedded into you. You're feeding that entity. So this is what we have to be aware of ourselves. Be aware of those thoughts ourselves. What's reinforcing that? You know, when you see these things coming to you, because it happens every day. I notice it every day, and you have to figure out a way to shut it down every single day. Because when you shut it down every single day, that's going to tell your subconscious mind through repetition, this is not my reality anymore. This is not who I am anymore. I'm past this. This doesn't affect me. You make the choice whether it affects you or not. Anything traumatic, anything depressing, anything apathetic, you make the choice every single day. And so when you keep shutting it down, when you keep telling yourself, this is not who I am, you keep telling it no, it will disappear, guaranteed, because it worked for me. So that's the video for today. That's the video on apathy and depression and how to deal with it. I wish you all luck in your journey, and peace.